This is the Toyota CHR. This compact SUV is an all-new model for the brand, and on paper it's a very interesting vehicle. So today I'm going to give you a tour through the CHR and tell you about all the interesting facts and features. Alright, so we are inside the CHR right now, and this is actually a pretty nice place to be. One feature I'm really excited about that this car has as standard: one-touch power windows, both up and down for all four windows. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And indeed, the whole interior in general is really impressive to me, especially for the price point. This is a no-option car. This is a base model car that costs $22,500. This is exactly what you get if you go to the dealership and say, I want a CHR with no options, with nothing. This is exactly what you get as standard. Alright, so I use those one-touch power windows and roll the windows back up. One, because it's very hot today and I have the air conditioning on, and two, this neighborhood is just a very noisy place to be in general. But let's get back to the CHR, because like I said, my biggest takeaway from this car when I first got in it was I was really impressed with the amount of standard features this thing has in it. Alright, so when it comes to features on the CHR, I want to start right here in the driver's seat. So the steering wheel has tons of buttons and things to play around with on it. You have all your controls here for your stereo, so that's your volume up, down, channel change, mode for AM, FM, Bluetooth audio, etc. You can do a hands-free call here if you have the Bluetooth paired to your phone. Over here you have all of your trip controls. So this is the center stack, and you can see all the cool things it has on it. Eco indicator, average MPG, average speed, long-term average MPG, current fuel economy. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. But if you scroll down, which you do using this little toggle right here on the steering wheel, there's a G-force monitor in this Toyota CHR. I'm not sure who owns a Toyota CHR and is going to be using this G-force monitor, but it's a really interesting, cool little feature to have in this car. And it's really, it's very touchy and very precise and very accurate. If we fling this thing around the corners, you'll see that little red ball inside the G meter go whoo, left and right, left and right. Or when you're braking or accelerating, it'll go forward and backwards. That's a pretty cool little feature. They didn't have to do that, but they did, and that's interesting. Okay, so I've shown you most of the steering wheel controls and what you're looking at as the right in front of the driver, but over here in the center console, there's a lot more stuff going on. You'll notice there's all these air conditioning controls right here. This car has dual zone climate control as standard. From there, it also has this very nice touchscreen, and it has all your radio controls on it and your settings. And that's all very standard. It has voice recognition. You can talk to it while you're driving, which is a very cool little feature. Nice hands-free. Obviously has Bluetooth to pair your phone to it if you want to play music or take calls. So there's one more thing I wanted to show you about the CHR and its sound system. Now say you're playing a song and you're like, man, I wish the sound quality was a little bit better. Hit the sound button over here, and you have all this adjustability right here. You can adjust your treble, your mid-range, your bass, and I think the most important thing to show you is the EQ, the equalizer. The equalizer has 3 different settings: vocal, which is great if you're listening to acoustic and really vocal heavy music; natural, which is a supposedly organic mid-ground setting; and powerful, which really sort of boosts the whole tone range of the music you're listening to. It's been my personal preference to leave it in powerful, as it sort of seems to fill out the mid-range of a lot of songs. Try playing around with this function. I'm a big fan of this level of adjustability in the vehicle, and obviously it has the auto sound changing depending on your speed. And you can also adjust kind of where you want your sound to go, which is really cool. It's a great level of adjustability in the car, and especially the equalizer. This is a cool pro tip to make your music sound much better in your CHR. Obviously you have AM, FM. You can pair a phone to this. You have down here USB, aux, and it does have wireless Bluetooth audio if that's your preference. For 2019, I've been told that they are adding Apple CarPlay to this, but this 2018 model does not have Apple CarPlay. So that's a deal breaker for you. Just wait one more year if possible. Okay, so I've shown you some of the tech that the CHR has for the driver and the passengers, but I want to show you just some more interesting interior details about it, because there's a lot going on here. And a lot of it is it's more subtle. It's stuff that you just appreciate once you drive the car some more. So first off, this car does come with floor mats, CHR branded floor mats as standard, which is nice. So, like many new cars, the Toyota CHR has some piano black interior trim pieces. That's these guys and this guy right here. But unlike a lot of cars, Toyota knew that piano black tends to show smudges from your fingerprints. So if you look really closely, it's not just piano black. I'll put a light on it right here. It's actually a really cool sparkly metallic finish with gold, blue, and purple flake in it. Similarly, another area where they put in a bit of extra effort is the dashboard. The front half of the dashboard has a nice padded leather wrap on it. If you look right here, this is all a nice padded leather material. There's a lot of nice foam insulation under this leather. It makes it really premium feeling. That theme of giving a bit more for your money continues on the door cards of all places. Look very closely. There's obviously a lot of textures and interesting things happening here. More so than that, look here. This is the armrest where your elbow sits, right? This is leather, which in and of itself is nice, but if you feel, it's nice and padded. So it's actually a quite comfortable place to rest your elbow. A lot of manufacturers will just leave this as plastic and it'll make your elbow sore after a while. This is nice and padded. That said, let's go to the center console, which has the same leather material right here where your elbow rests. The only interesting difference is this is not padded. I don't know why. That's kind of a curious thing. It's the same material as the elbow armrest on the door card, but this is not padded, just solid plastic. Then we come to the center stack here. I've gotten a lot of compliments about this, I guess because the funky shape of it, and again, the multiple materials and textures at play. This is a nice leather shift boot, a nice aluminum look knob. It's actually plastic, but it feels nice. You'll notice that there is a staggered cup holder setup. There's one cup holder here and one up here, instead of usually two being right here. I thought that was kind of a disadvantage, but it seems to work pretty well in practical application. If you look inside here, you'll notice this cup holder is actually pretty shallow. And that may seem like a problem in America, where we love our big drinks in our cars while we go driving. The front one's nice and deep, but what about this one? It's really small. Well, if you look inside, there are two holes in the bottom. Those, like a bowling ball, are to stick your finger in there and take out this little cover where it becomes nice and deep. That way, if you have a big drink, you take this cover out and put it in there. If you have a small drink, you put this cover back in and your small drink fits back in there. That's smart thinking. As I mentioned, the CHR has both an aux port and a USB stick, depending on how you want to either charge your phone or use it in the car, or charge any of your other devices. Also, if you lift up this little center console, there is a 12-volt thing in there if you want to plug in a big old car charger. Alright, now we're in the back seat of the CHR. I've not changed the position of the driver's seat. This is an interesting test because I'm 6'1" and I have the driver's seat in my position. With a 6'1" driver in the front seat, I can comfortably sit in the back seat without my knees jamming into the seat. I have about an inch of free play here, and I'm actually pretty comfortable back here. Oh yeah, and each rear seat occupant has their nice little cup holder. One more thing while we're in the back seat of the CHR, I want to show you another one of those little interesting features that you don't notice till you look more carefully at the car. This is one of those things where it just shows they put in a little bit of extra effort where they didn't necessarily have to do so. Look up at the headliner. There's this interesting, intricate design in the headliner. Do you know what those are? Those are supposed to represent leaves, to represent the economical driving of this car. It matches the leaves and the design of the screen when you drive around in eco mode. Okay, so I need to park the CHR really quick, and that gives me a chance to show you off another little feature of the car. Like all new cars, the CHR does have a backup camera, though it's not exactly where you expect it to be. Put the car into reverse, and the backup camera is up here in the corner of the rear view mirror. So let's back the car up. Now look where we have the car right now according to the screen. There's two lines, one here and one here, that dictate where you are in your imaginary lane. And there are three horizontal bars, a red one and two green ones, that dictate how far back you are in the space. You may be wondering, what does each of these mean and why is this one red? Well, this red bar, the one nearest to your rear bumper, is exactly 18 inches away from the edge of your bumper. So at the rear bumper is here, and that red line, which is where the car behind us is exactly 18 inches behind us. That's a useful reference mark to know. Also, these two vertical lines right here are exactly the width of a standard dimension size parking space. Pretty smart. Okay, so I've talked you through some of the facts and features about the Toyota CHR. Now it's time to hit the road and actually go for a drive. Right away, the first thing I want to show you is pulling out of this parking spot in this neighborhood. So this is a standard two-way street in any given neighborhood, and I'm currently parked curbside. I need to turn around and go the other direction though. This brings me to the first thing about the Toyota CHR is the turning radius is actually fantastic for a small SUV. Crank the wheel, let it go. And no three-point turns required. It can get through this two-lane road, no problem. So with the Toyota CHR, there are two available trim levels. There's the XLE, and then for $1,750 more, you can upgrade to the XLE Premium. The four big differences, as I see it, is that if you bump up to the XLE Premium, you get fog lights on the outside, heated front seats on the inside, blind spot monitoring while you're driving, and you also get an upgrade from a standard key to Toyota's Smart Key keyless entry system with a push-button start. So if those features are important to you, it is worth the bump up to the XLE Premium. So right now I'm merging onto the freeway in the Toyota CHR, and that brings up an important stat I want to talk about with this car. With just 144 horsepower and 139 pound-feet of torque, trying to move around a 3,300 pound family SUV, you'd be concerned, man, is it too slow or is it quick enough for the daily drive? And to be quite honest, I was concerned about that at first. Toyota claims 0 to 60 happens in about 10 seconds, which is pretty slow by modern car standards. But it honestly has not been an issue for me in day-to-day driving. Everyone who's driven the car has basically said the same thing. It's obviously not a stoplight racer, but it's fast enough for the daily commute. So I'm driving down the freeway, and as is the way with all Los Angeles freeways, no matter what time of day it is, there's a lot of traffic, it's very busy, and people are weaving around in between different lanes. And that brings me to a very cool feature that comes on the Toyota CHR as standard. This car has lane keep assist, so if it thinks you're wandering off, it'll beep at you and give a gentle tug on the steering wheel, which is a cool safety feature. More importantly, for your day-to-day commute, it also has radar-guided cruise control, which basically means if I want to, I can set the cruise control at 65 miles an hour, and the front-facing camera in the car will see the car in front of me and brake and accelerate as needed without my inputs to keep the car going and basically follow the car in front of me. So all I have to do is steer the car. That's a really cool feature for a $22,000 vehicle. And it's really nice when you're commuting because it just reduces driver fatigue. It really makes it kind of idiot-proof to drive the car because all you really need to do is steer it. The car will brake and accelerate for you within moderation. So the Toyota CHR has 3 different driving modes, and that goes back to the little center screen in the gauge cluster that I mentioned before. You can toggle between normal mode, eco mode, and sport mode. And basically what that does, it adjusts the throttle so that it's more attentive and more snappy and responsive in sport mode, kind of just normal in normal mode. And in eco mode, it really dials back the throttle response and the transmission mapping to kind of best target good fuel economy. Personally, I tend to leave in eco mode, which is surprising because in a lot of cars I dislike the eco modes. It makes the car feel too inert and too lazy. But in a car like this, it has a pretty relaxed character to begin with, it kind of fits the car. Speaking of fuel economy, that's a big deal for this car. So the CHR does feature the 2-liter naturally aspirated inline 4-cylinder engine that is not very powerful with 144 horsepower. It is paired to Toyota's new CVT transmission with 7 fake gears, and Toyota touts the efficiency of this car quite a lot. Though, The EPA fuel economy figures of 27 city, 31 freeway aren't that impressive, to be quite honest with you. And I was trying to figure out where the disconnect is, because with an engine that's not particularly powerful and a car that's not that heavy, it really should be a pretty efficient little thing. Here's the real world deal. In the real world, with my independent testing, it seems like the CHR does slightly worse around town than 27. I've been averaging around 24 to 25 when I drive strictly around town. But on the freeway, the story changes completely. Despite the fact the EPA rates it at 31 mpg on the freeway, I average closer to 36 to 37 miles to the gallon when I drive on the freeway. That's going back and forth to work, some traffic, some straight through, and speeds ranging from 55 to 75 miles an hour. The car seems way more efficient than what the EPA seems to rate it as far as MPG fuel economy, which makes sense given the fact it's not a particularly big or powerful thirsty engine, and it's not a very big or heavy car. So we've hit a patch of open freeway, which in Los Angeles is very rare. We're actually at the speed limit going 65 miles an hour. And I want to talk about something else that is uniquely Toyota. So when I posted on social media, look, I have a CHR for the week, what do you want to know about it? I had several comments talking about wind noise. So apparently early build CHRs had problems with the driver's side window and driver's side mirror causing terrible wind noise and buffeting sounds, even with the windows all up. And so I thought, oh man, that's something to look out for. But at least on this car, this test car has over 8,000 miles on it now. I mean, there's some wind noise. You can hear them. I'm sure you can hear it. The microphone's picking it up, but it's not really all that noticeable, I guess, or worth mentioning. So that might be on a car-by-car basis. So something to look out for when you're test driving a CHR is that it may have wind noise issues. And if it does, I would either buy a different one on the lot or talk to your dealership about it and getting that issue addressed. So something else to mention about the CHR is, as we're cruising down the freeway, is the ride quality of this vehicle. This CHR rides on the new Toyota New Global Architecture midsize platform, which is a brand new platform developed by Toyota to fit a large range of vehicles. And it basically means, the long story short, is that this rides the same basic platform as the Prius and the Toyota Camry. And it's a pretty comfortable ride. To be honest, it feels, in ride quality, almost very similar to a Camry or a Corolla. And so if you've driven either of those vehicles, maybe you're coming from those and you want to get into a CHR, it's very similar in the way it rides, which is to say, it's pretty comfortable. Although, I do have to say that as compared to some of the competitors, Honda in particular, for example, the shock tuning that Toyota uses is not quite as premium feeling as like the Honda with the HR-V, for example. So if you look behind me, look over my shoulder, you'll notice that this interior is just a cave. It's just, there's not much glass back there. And the fact that the whole interior is black means it's very dark behind me. And you think that with no glass back there, the blind spots in this car would be terrible. But I've not run into any single issues driving this car around. And everyone who's driven the car said the same thing. When they first look at the car, they say, oh God, the blind spots must be awful. But in the real world, it doesn't seem to be an issue. The glass that is back there seems to do the job pretty well. And I haven't run into any issues where I've been like, oh man, is there a car back there? I can't tell. It's never seemed to be a problem with this car. That said, because everything is all black in this whole interior and there's not that much glass back there, man, look at that camera shake, it does tend to create a sort of, for lack of a better word, cave effect, especially at night. The dome lights in this car are not up to the task of lighting up the interior, and you do have to whip out your phone, use the flashlight app or something, because it is so dark in here. If you drop something, it's gone forever. So I mentioned before in the video, I was really impressed with the quality of the interior materials in this vehicle. That said, because this test car does have over 8,000 miles on it, I'm a bit concerned about the longevity of it. I'm sure, like, mechanically this thing's gonna last 1 million miles. It's a Toyota. They all They all last hundreds of thousands of miles. It will take you where you need to go from A to B forever. Interior-wise, although the materials look very nice, I do have to mention the fact that there are a few squeaks and rattles already, which is kind of disappointing. One that's developed is actually over here in the passenger side. It seems to be coming from where the door closes up against the dashboard. I'm not sure what. It's kind of just squeaking over bumps. That's kind of disappointing. Alright, so I had the radar guided cruise control set at 70 miles an hour, and the Toyota CHR is slowed down to approximately 62 because a car just cut in front of me and slowed down traffic. So again, I didn't do anything. All I'm doing is steering the car, but the car is braking and accelerating for me. So I can adjust the radar guided cruise via proximity. So there's 3 settings as to how close you'll let the car get to the car in front of you. To put it in perspective, 3 out of 3, which is the farthest away you can be from the vehicle in front of you, is roughly 10 car lengths. So it's quite a large distance. In the real world, no one stays that far away from another vehicle, especially if there's any sort of traffic. I like to leave it in 1 out of 3, which is the closest setting. That leaves you about 3 car lengths away from the car in front of you. It's obviously enough distance to safely brake if you need to, or change lanes, whatever you gotta do. So I want to talk about Toyota's lane keep assist technology. One, I'm really impressed they managed to stuff that sort of tech into a $22,000 car as a no-option standard feature. Although I'm a bit disappointed in the implementation of the lane keep assist. Because, for example, the radar guided cruise, that works fantastically. That's like flawless. Although I've run into several issues where I have lane keep assist on and I'm testing it. So I'll like veer over and see if it finds the line and see if it beeps at me or does anything. And about half the time it doesn't seem to work. That's kind of disappointing. Other times it kind of just seems to work on its own schedule, especially at night. I guess the low light kind of confuses the sensors in the car. Because a lot of times I'll be driving and even a mild bend in the road, even if I'm staying dead center in the lane, it'll cause the car to freak out and beep. So the lane keep assist, to be quite frank, you can turn it off with the button right here. I would just turn it off. So let's talk about the transmission in the Toyota CHR. Like a lot of other Toyota models, the CHR uses a CVT, a continuously variable automatic transmission. And in the real world, if you leave it and drive, there's no real tangible difference. However, the difference does come if you slap the shifter over to M for manual mode. If you know anything about how a CVT works, it's kind of a funny thing to hear. But a CVT does not have traditional gears like a regular automatic transmission would have. That said, Toyota has programmed in 7 fake gears to kind of give you that sensation of a conventional transmission. You put it in manual mode, it tries to replicate gears and gives you the option to shift it yourself. It's kind of a bizarre thing. I don't really recommend doing it. It's not any faster or more performance oriented. Just leave it and drive if you want the best fuel economy and the best engine performance. So what is my biggest complaint with the Toyota CHR? Well, I guess it's the way they've contented it for the North American audience. Now I say that because in North America there is only one powertrain spec for the CHR right now. That is the 2-liter gasoline engine with the CVT automatic transmission. And it's a fine package overall, but when you look at what the rest of the world gets, it sounds slightly less appealing. In Japan and in Europe, you have the option of a 1.8-liter hybrid engine, which to me sounds like a much better fit for this car and its sort of eco motives that it's trying to promote it having. The 2-liter engine is not a particularly fast or powerful engine, so any lack of power or trade-off of power you get with the smaller engine in the hybrid is more than offset by the gains in the fuel economy you get, especially around town where the CHR is slightly lacking. So I wish they had the option of a CHR hybrid in the North American audience. Maybe you'd make it like one step above the XLE Premium. You'd offer the CHR hybrid as like a $25,000, $26,000 option. And that, to me, would be a really strong seller in the segment, because I don't think, off the top of my head, HRV, CX-3, etc., they don't offer a hybrid option. And Toyota offers it in other markets. They just need to bring it here. And I think it would be a great option for a lot of people. So let's wrap things up with Toyota CHR. This XLE model with no options is an extraordinarily reasonable price tag of $22,500 as tested as a no-option vehicle. And I think that for the money, it does offer a great value. There are obviously a few things that I'm less than thrilled about, but that's kind of normal for any car. And I think that for what this car sets out to do and the market is trying to appease, it's doing a great job. It's cool looking, it's easy to park, it's easy to drive, it's more fuel efficient than the stats and figures would lead you to believe. And it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. Hopefully this review has been helpful for you. I do recommend going and test driving a CHR. For me personally, I would stick with the base XLE and save your extra $1,700 and go take a vacation instead. The XLE Premium has some cool features, but for me, it's not a make or a break. And for the audiophiles out there, I would recommend waiting a few more months till the 2019 model comes out, because it will have the updated head unit with the Apple CarPlay. And I know that's a big deal for some people watching. So yeah, that's my take on the CHR. It's a really good car, and I'm really impressed with the amount of content they were able to jam into it for the modest price tag. Go check it out.